several distinguished gentlemen from our quality services team who will be helping answer questions as we go along today. Today's webinar is going to be covering building some interactivity inside of ZebraZapps, and what you should see in front of you is a screen here that says History of the American Flag, and I'll be demoing just kind of as we're getting started here some of the interactivity that we'll be building today. A few of the pieces are set up as a challenge, so you have to discover how to build them, after the session. But we'll actually be covering all of the ribbons and tips that you need in order to create it, just not prescribing it step by step. So before we really get dived into the ZebraZapps editor, let me give you a quick preview about what we will be building here today. Over on the left-hand side of my application, I've got 3 flags: the current American flag, the Betsy Ross variant of the 13 Stars and Stripes, as well as the Francis Hopkinson version of the same flag. And so I've got rollovers here that fade in and out as I move from flag to flag. I can click and drag a flag, and I get kind of this ghosted image. And when I drop it on the prescribed place where it says place flag here, you notice 2 things. One, before I let go, I have a bit of a glow to let me know that indeed I can drop an object here. Once I do, you get a much larger version of the American flag. And then I've got space here for some text about the flag. And down at the bottom, I've got a button here that says Learn More. And when you click on this button, it opens up another page, and here I'm linking out to Wikipedia, where you can read more about the history of the American flag. I'm going to close it. I'm going to close this window and go back here to my application yet again, and you can see that I can continually drop over and over. I haven't written much text in here, but you should see that the name is changing, so I've got space for lots of display text, and then, of course, different links that jump you out to find more about Betsy Ross and Francis Hopkinson. So this application didn't take very long to complete. In fact, I built a couple of these today in advance of sharing it with all of you, and without doing any narration, it takes me about 10 minutes. So today we've got scheduled a 90-minute webinar, and we'll be building this together inside ZebraZapps. So I invite you all to go to ZebraZapps.com right now and log into your account. And as well as we start building this together, we'll be talking a bit about some of the functions and ribbons and theory behind creating this interaction.
It sounds like fun to me.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump out here to ZebraZapps, and we'll open up a new editor. And before I begin, I do realize that I forgot to go over a couple of ground rules. We are, of course, in listen-only mode again, but if you do have questions, open up your GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll find a couple of things. One is an input box and category labeled questions. If you write in a text question as we're going along, several people are here to respond to each of your individual questions, and as we go along, a number of these questions will be brought up by the group, and we'll discuss the question and subsequent answer together. The second thing is, occasionally I'll use the hands up feature inside GoToWebinar as a way to let me know that you've completed the step and that you are following along. So occasionally you'll hear me say, if you could please put your hands up, go to the GoToWebinar control panel and click on the little, on the Mac, it's a little hand icon. This will put your hands up, and I'll be able to see it, and it'll let me know that the group is following along, and I'll be able to put your hand down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give my account here, or my project, a title. You probably aren't seeing a screen that looks a lot like this. It's a preview to our professional version, which is going to be out here in just a little bit. And this selection screen not only gives me the opportunity to set a project name, select a stage size, and a few other notes, changing the position of the watermark, but you'll also see here over on the right, we've got some icons and things in here for what we're calling templates, which are navigation templates, and so a feature that will be coming to you very soon, and I look forward to demonstrating it. So let's just call this history of the flag, and we'll say create project. Oh, I scrolled over a nice looking template there. Okay, so we've got our project all set up. The second thing is you should have received this in an email, and I hope Brittany will send this through the chat window, which is a link to the assets that we'll be using in today's project. And if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and download those now, because we're going to start using them immediately. I'll just give you a second here, and then I'll show you how to import assets into your ZebraZapps project. There are a couple different ways that you can access your desktop and import assets. Under the project pop-up or pull-down menu, you will find here down at the very bottom import asset, and this, by clicking this here, you'll open up a dialog to your desktop. You'll be able to navigate out to folders and go ahead and select assets. To grab them, you just go ahead and, here I've got 4 that I'd like you to bring in. We've got the American flag. The American flag, the Betsy Ross flag, the Hopkinson's flag, and a background image labeled liberty.png. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all 4 of those images and select Open. And now, of course, you're wondering where do they go? Over on the left-hand side of the editor window, there are some icons here, one for the cloud, another for the toolbox, and here we've got our resource library. We're going to click and open this up, and here we now have access to all of the assets. There's a second way that you can import assets into a ZebraZapps project, especially if you've got your resource library open and handy. You can go ahead and hit this small little plus button on the resource library panel, and it too opens up access to your operating system, so you can go ahead and select a few images and import them into your project. I've got nothing more to import, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel, and we'll go ahead and get started. So if you can, let's make sure I've actually got that project still up and running. Open a new window. I'm going to toggle back and forth between our finished version and what we are creating. So as we're going along, we've got an opportunity to see the end goal. And let's open this in a new window. And I can get rid of this one. Okay, so in our finished application, let's just start with the very basics, which is I've got a flag over here that I can drag. I can let go anywhere. It pops back into place so I can drag it again and again and again. When I mouse over or drag it over to where it says place flag here, I get a bit of a glow, and when I let go, this space turns into a much larger image of the American flag. Pop this down, and that's exactly where we'd like to start. So let's go ahead and grab an image of the American flag from our resource library, so americanflag.png. We'll drag this onto the screen, and we'll place it kind of right about here. Now, if you've joined us on other webinars in the past, you should be fairly familiar with an object called an arena. And an arena can be created in several different ways. From the toolbox, you'll find its icon here down in the lower left. And you can click on it and drag a spot, creating a window. You notice that it says page 1 here. And an arena is a resizable object. You can make it as big or small as you'd like. And it's a way of creating pages or storing content. Back in our interaction, you see that every time I drop a new flag over the old one, I get a larger new image. And this effect is achieved simply by creating a 4-page arena. And on pages 2, 3, and 4, I've got images of each American flag. So on page 2, I've got the one with 50 stars. I've got the 13-star circle on page 3, and the spaced out 13 stars on page 4. So when I start this application again, I've got the text that says place flag here. This gets me to page 2, to page 3, and to page 4.
There are probably a lot of ways to do this, the same kind of interaction, but I've seen our own people using this as a general type of interaction to take a small icon and drop it onto a larger object and then have that larger object respond to it, right? So,
right.
So by creating this kind of interaction, then we can just substitute graphics, right, and use it for lots and lots of different content.
Absolutely.
So it's what we're not seeing, though, to make sure that people aren't confused, is when you're dragging those flags from the left to the right, that image is actually disappearing when we get over to the right. It's not that image getting larger, but it's actually an arena that's sitting there on that flagpole, if you will, right? And
right.
It's flipping to an image that corresponds to the flag that you dropped over.
Correct.
Right. So I can see that being used, and I see why people use this a lot. I think it's pretty easy to build, right? And once you build it, you can use it a lot.
You can use it over lots and lots. And in fact, here as I've got the Betsy Ross variant of the 13 stars and stripes, you can see that there are in fact 3 images here. The ghost image here that I'm dragging, the image that's left behind, and the much larger image. So I've actually got 3 versions of the same flag on the screen. We've got one that we can move, one that stays behind, and then the much larger one which is sitting inside an arena.
And it is exactly the same image, right, used from the asset library?
Used from the asset library. The ones over on the left are zoomed down to 50%, and the one over here on the right is at 100%. And again, sitting inside an arena page.
So that helps keep this application very small because we're just using images multiple times with multiple treatments.
Yep.
And so they only load over the internet one time.
Correct.
Right? And then all the modifications are done locally.
Not only that, but the images that I've chosen here are really, really small. So again, I think they're like 4K for each flag.
Yeah, so it's just going to pop up.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close our example. Again, this is what a general arena looks like. I'm going to show you a fantastic shortcut for creating an arena out of objects that are already on the stage. And this is really handy because the arena, when you use this shortcut, will auto-size to the largest area of the objects that you've selected. So if you only choose one object, it's going to size it perfectly to that one object. And that's going to be really useful for a couple effects that you'll see in a moment. So let's go ahead and use the shortcut. I'm going to go ahead and select this flag. So you should see the 8 handles around it. And I'm going to go up to the Arrange menu. And at the very bottom of the Arrange menu, you'll see a command called Make Arena. It's also got a hotkey, which is the @ sign. So if you hit Shift and 2, it will also make an arena. And you're not going to see much on the screen, but let me show you how it works. I'll go ahead and hit the Make Arena command. You see I do get an arena controller at the very top, and now what's selected is actually the arena. And I might go ahead and relabel this arena. We'll call this, we'll call it a drop spot. So this arena is going to hold 3 flags and the instructions to the user when they first start, which is place flag here. To create additional pages inside your arena, you can go ahead and just hit the plus button here at the very top of the controller, which adds a new page after the first page. If I hold down the Alt key, it will copy everything that's on this first page of the arena and also duplicate it then on the second page of the arena, so you have 2 identical pages. It's a great function for if you've got a much larger page with maybe some navigation or titles on it, and you want to keep the theme and position of things on the screen exactly as they were before. We're actually going to go ahead and use the Alt plus key because I want to replace graphics here in a little bit. But let's go ahead and add a new page by holding down the Alt key or Option key on your computer and pressing the plus button. Again, nothing much changes when I do this, but you should see now that I have 2 pages and I am on page 2.
That even happens if you don't hold the Alt key down.
Sure, if I don't hold the Alt key down and hit the plus button, I get a blank page, which is page 3, and I'm on page 3 of 3. If I use the arena controller at the very top to go back a page, here's page 2, and here's page 1. You'll see that page 1 and 2 are identical, and page 3 is now empty.
Okay, so if we want 3 identical, do you want 3 identical pages for this exercise?
Well, I'd like 4 actually identical pages.
Okay, so we can get rid of 3 just by clicking that minus, right?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and delete page 3, and we'll add 2 more. I'm going to hold down the Alt key and press plus and plus. So now I should have 4 absolutely identical pages. On page 4, instead of the 50 stars and stripes, we're going to include the Hopkinson flag. And I'm just going to go ahead and replace the image of the current American flag. To do this, I'm going to grab an image. I'm going to grab the Hopkinson flag from the resource library, pull it onto the stage, and then I'm going to mouse over the 50 stars version of the flag, wait for that construction tape to appear, and let go. Now you should see a bit of a warning message, and it's really good that we got this warning message. Let's read it and investigate a little bit more. We have found several objects which could be replaced. What would you like to do? Replace all the objects that we found, or only replace this object? So what Zebra has noticed is that there are 4 copies of the current American flag in our project.
In fact, there's a 4 showing in the asset library over at the left there.
And so I've got 2 options. One is I can just replace this object, which will, on page 4, replace the current American flag with the Hopkinson flag. Or if I were to choose replace all, every version of the current American flag would be replaced with the Hopkinson flag. Well, I just want the Hopkinson flag, so I'm going to go ahead and choose replace this. So now we should have the Hopkinson flag on page 4. If I page back to 3, 2, and 1, we should still see the other flag. So then on page 3, I want the Betsy Ross version, actually of the same flag, and we'll discover more about the differences between the Hopkinson flag and the Betsy Ross flag as we move on today. But on page 3 of 4, I'm going to go ahead and replace the current American flag with the Betsy Ross flag. And again, we'll do that by clicking on the resource library and then mousing over with that image onto the stage, over the flag, right in the middle, and let go. Again, we should get the replacement options. We have found several objects which could be replaced. What would you like to do? And we just, again, want to replace this one.
It's important that you can't set the object down on your way from the asset library over, right?
Right.
If you set it down, then it's no longer a replacement candidate, and you just have to delete it and go back and get a fresh one from the asset library.
Right. Okay, so now let's take stock. We should have on page 1 the current American flag, on page 2 the current American flag, the Betsy Ross version on page 3, and on page 4, the Francis Hopkinson version. Page 1, I actually want to get rid of the current American flag. And page 1 is going to serve as the instructions for what the user should do. And of course, that's drop the smaller icon on top to change the image. A couple ways I can do this. One is I can click and just pull the American flag right out. Of course, if it was still kind of in there and selected, you could go ahead and hit the delete key. So go ahead and do that. So we've got a blank page on 1, the current American flag on page 2, the Betsy Ross version on page 3, and the Francis Hopkinson version on page 4. And once you've completed all of those steps, go ahead and use the hands up button on GoToMeeting, and we'll continue on with the next step. Looks like we're all moving along. I'm going to go ahead and put everyone's hands down. And now I want to talk a little bit about locking the arena in different ways that you can ensure that your content doesn't escape the arena at runtime for any number of reasons. So let's go ahead and on page 1, let's go ahead and just click the arena so that we know we've got it. And you know you have an object by a couple ways. One, the handles are there. 2, that the message center for that object is highlighted yellow. Over on the right-hand side of our editor, we find the what we call the ribbon inspector, or property inspector in ribbon library.
If you're not seeing it, which is possible because it opens and closes, there's that eye way over on the right-hand edge, and it should be green, indicating that the thing is open. If it's not, you need to click that eye and it should open the inspector that Christopher's talking about.
And the inspector is a really handy way to change some properties that one rule is that I use the property inspector as a way to change the layout and the look and feel of particular objects and just do it quickly. Of course, all of these things are listed inside the message center for the object, but you might have those changing at runtime based on some sort of user action. So the inspector is a great way to just make a few quick changes. But it's also a nice place to illustrate some of the things and how an arena works. Under Actions, here by default inside the inspector, you'll find two ribbons highlighted. Of course, there are many more actions, but the 2 that are here at the top are pretty important. Object Accept and Object Release refer to the arena's ability to get new objects. And let me show you how that works. I'm going to create some text. I'm going to create it outside the arena. And just in my text object here, I'll say place flag here. Now, if I wanted this text to be inside the arena, all I'd have to do is click on the text and drag it up. And of course, as it starts to get close to the edge and my mouse goes in, you notice that it clips. And then I can position it anywhere I'd like. This action right here is Eclipse, means that the arena is set to accept objects. So I can actually put things in it. I can drag any number of things. I mean, I could quickly create a rectangle, drag that in, and now you can see that the arena owns it. Go ahead and delete that, and let's just put our text right inside there. So if I just kind of position my text here for a second, click on the arena, get the inspector open up with the properties of the arena, and we're to say object accept is false, the next time that I drew an object, say like a rectangle, and I tried to bring it inside the arena, you can see that it only covers it up. It never clips. And that's because this object is not going inside one of the pages of the arena. Additionally, once an object is in there and you want to prevent it from coming out, go ahead and select our arena once again and turn object release to false. And this will prevent any object that you've placed inside your arena from escaping. So now if I go ahead and I click on my text here and I try to drag it to the edge, you notice that it's not coming out. My mouse is going way over to the left, but the text is staying inside the arena. So those are two important locks that you should know about content when putting inside the arena.
Yeah, I should mention that these apply both for editing and at runtime. So if you want to have your learners working with some movable objects, but you want to make sure that those objects stay within an area of the screen, you can use an arena, put the objects in there, and then lock it, right? Mm-hmm. And then make those objects all movable. And then learners can move those objects all around, but when they get to the edge of the arena, it won't go any further.
Yep.
Right? And that's really useful. Similarly, you can have people drag objects, like if they're doing concept learning and they're trying to pile all the, we always use chairs as a concept, you know. There's seating and then there's chair, and there are different levels of concept, you know, and so we'd have different articles of furniture on the screen, and we'd say drag all of the chairs into one area. Well, you could do that here too, right? And they could slide them in. The arena would accept it if you said accept. If you had release set to false, they could move them in, but they couldn't change their mind, right? They go in and they'd have to stay. So you can create all kinds of interactions from these same things that we're using just now, I think, to make it easier for us to author.
So these are two very, very powerful ribbons inside the arena, not just as we explore the interaction today, but as you start building your own content. I really do invite you to go ahead and use these, get very familiar with them, because together they can be extraordinarily powerful. The second type of locking that I do want to talk about today is the concept of position locking, which means wherever I am on the screen, including inside an arena page, if I want to make sure that an object is never moved for any reason, whether that's while I'm authoring or at runtime, there are a couple ways you can do it. But for author convenience, the concept of position locking is really important. At the top right of your message center for all objects, you're going to find two locks. One of them is a lock that locks the wiring, which means if you've gone ahead and you've created some interactivity by wiring between objects, clicking this little lock here in the upper right-hand corner, and you know that it's active when it becomes highlighted white, means that you can no longer delete wires that are connected to this object or make new ones. So if you want to make sure that you got something working perfectly and you don't want to mess it up, hitting your object or wire lock is one way to prevent that. And the second is the position lock, which prevents the author from selecting it as well as the author moving it while we're editing. And we're going to be using this a bit today. And so what I'd like you to do is on page 1, 2, 3, and 4, for each object, go ahead and lock it down positionally. So go ahead and hit this Lock Objects Position button and just get this one locked in place. And this will make sure that we don't accidentally bump or move something as we're doing our drag and drop editing and moving things around the screen. And again, we're just locking what's inside the arena.
So a page, you click a flag or what's in it, and then lock, and then you're going to another page, clicking what's in it, locking.
Right. Another one of the things about the position lock is that it also prevents you from selecting it just by dragging a marquee over a particular object. Once you've locked all three flags in the text, you'll notice that every time that you go to kind of select it or move it, you just move the whole arena. And that's because the arena is the only thing that's left that is selectable. So once you've got everything in here, you can reposition this and move it around the screen. Really, really handy. If for some reason one of the things that you lock down is slightly out of position or your layout changes and you want to move it again and then lock it down, go ahead and double-click. Here I've just double-clicked on the Hopkinson flag. You can unselect its position lock. You can move it around and go ahead and hit the lock button again. Okay, this gets us right up to the point of building our first interaction, which is the drag and drop portion. So let's go ahead and bring on the first flag, which is the American flag. We'll have that one be the one at the very top, and I'll drop it over here on the screen. And I'm also going to size it down to 50%. And I'm going to use the zoom ribbon. So if I go ahead and I select the American flag, I can do that a couple of ways. One, I can go over to the inspector and say zoom to 50%, hit return. Or of course you can find that same property inside the message center for the American flag under geometry, right underneath rotation degrees. I'm going to pull up our example here just for a second and show you why we want to use position locking right away. When I click and drag the first American flag here and move it, you'll notice that I've got two that are small. I've got one that's slightly transparent and another one where it originated from in the same place. When I drop over here, I change the page to the arena. Essentially all I've done is I've layered two flags right on top of each other. So we're going to be making two copies. And let's just go ahead and select the first one. You can even position lock it right now if you'd like. While it's still selected, go to your Edit menu or the Command key of just C and copy. It should copy one object. And the Command key V to paste. So paste two right on top of each other. The second one, of course, is also position locked. I'll unselect that. And so now I've got one that I can move and one that I can't select. I'm going to do all those steps again. Let's go ahead and double-click the one that's underneath it, unlock it, grab both objects, and delete it. We can do this a couple different ways. So we'll go drop the American flag on here. We'll zoom it down to 50%. Without locking it, of course, I can go to the Edit menu, go copy, and paste. So I have two right on top of each other in the same position. If I want to make sure that I've got that one below it position locked, here's a trick that I've been using all week, which is to select the image that's on top, then go up to the Arrange menu, the Edit menu, and down at the very bottom of the Edit menu, you'll find a set of nudge commands. Nudge left 10, nudge right 10, nudge up 10, nudge down 10, and of course they've got command keys that go with them, which is just holding down the Shift key and then pressing the arrow key on your keyboard. And so since I've been doing this interaction a lot where I've got a stable image behind it and then a ghost that I drag over the top, what I do is I get both of those objects copy and pasted in the same position. Then just clicking once selects the object on the top. Then I can hold down the Shift key and the arrow key to nudge my object over 10 at a time. And of course, if you just do it once and twice, it's really easy then to just nudge the one that's over on the top so that you can select the one that's on the bottom. Do whatever it is that you need to do with the one on the bottom, like go ahead and lock it. Then you can select the one on top again, hold down the Shift key, and nudge it over to the left.
So the total objective here is to have two flags, one exactly on top of the other one, and the bottom one is locked position.
That's correct.
Right. Doesn't matter which of these many techniques you use, just so you end up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we want to have happen is I want the user to be able to drag this flag that's over on the top, let go right on top of our arena, and the arena to flip to the page where we've got the corresponding flag. So now we're going to do our first set of wiring. I'm going to click off and click on just so that I know I've got the image right on the top. And then I'm going to open up the outs for this American flag. And you'll notice in the message center that the second category from the top is drag and drop. And we'll go ahead and we'll open that up. Now we're actually going to be using we're going to be using four of the ribbons, everything but drag moving, in this interaction. So when I start dragging, we have something that happens. When I've released the object, when I've dropped on something, and when I've missed the target. All three of these triggers or actions that the user can do are going to change something inside of our application.
Nice.
Make sure that you've got your arena set to page 1 of 4. Let's just do that now by clicking on the arena and making sure that you're on the very first page where you have your instructions. This makes it really easy to select the target that we want to drop on. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to tell this smaller version of the American flag that it has a drop target and what that drop target is. Under the category of drag and drop, you should find at the bottom here a drop-down ribbon. You can toggle it open, closed. You find some properties including what the target is and a second action if they have missed that target altogether. I'm going to click right in the cell here for drop target, and you should get a rollover that says define drop target. So I'm going to click in this space. It says please select an object. I go over here to the arena and just kind of somewhere right in the bottom click. And now you should see inside the drop target cell here the word drop or whatever it is that you've named your arena. If you didn't name your arena, it might just say arena right in this space. So now this object knows that the arena here is a target. And when we're successful dropping the American flag on the arena, we want to flip to the page with the right flag on it. In this case, it's the one with the 50 stars. So let's just go ahead and wire from dropped on. Click and create a wire. We'll bring this wire up over to the arena. We get the arena's message center. We're going to go down to properties and to values and to page current. Even though it says page current is on number 1, we're going to go ahead and let go. So what this wire action really says is when the flag here on top is dropped on top of the arena, set the current page, in this case, to page 1. Well, if we did that, we wouldn't get to see the right flag. We really want to see page 2. So we're going to go and where it says 1 here, we're going to go ahead and type in a 2. So when I drop on the arena, change the arena page to page 2. When you've completed the step, why don't you use the hands up function again in GoToMeeting to let me know that you've completed these steps. And again, if you have any questions, please be sure to ask them through the question pane. We've got lots of people here to answer questions, or certainly let me know that there are a few things more I need to address. Wow, looks like everybody's following right along. Okay, I'm going to put the hands down. I'll close up this GoToMeeting panel. And then there's one last thing that I need to do, which is I need to tell Zebra that this American flag, which is on top, that the user can move it. If I just go ahead and select the image or the scaled down icon here of the American flag, Over inside the Message Center, under Actions, you will find the ribbon which is called Moveable. We need to turn this to True. If you don't have your inspector open, again, by clicking the American flag here, looking under Properties, Actions, and the second one from the top is Moveable, we want to make sure that Moveable is turned to True. Go ahead and do that now, and then we'll go ahead and test our application. Up in the upper left, you'll find several buttons for controlling whether or not we're running the application or editing. Let's go ahead and hit the Run Restart button here in the upper left. And then I should be able to click and drag. Oops. Let's make sure that I do have this set to Moveable. Run Lock. Click and drag. There we go. It was just my mouse. Should be able to move the flag wherever I'd like, and if I mouse over the arena does not clip my flag, so it's not letting it go in there. And when I let go, we should turn to page 2, and you should get a small American flag and a big American flag. If you haven't gotten that, please go ahead and ask a question inside the answer pane, and we'll work with you to make sure that we've got everything set up correctly. I'm going to hit the Edit Reset button, and while we're doing this, it's probably important to know that Edit Reset will return your application back to the way it started, so we'll have those two American flags right on top of each other. Hitting the one right next to it will leave it in its current state. So we want to hit the little pencil button with the circle and arrow. Okay, so our first action is working really well in that we can drag the flag over on top of the arena, let go, and the arena page changes. But what we also want to have happen is we want the little icon to scoot back right where it was before so that you can continually do this action over and over. So let's select the American flag again and close up Properties and open up Outs on the Message Center, and we'll open up Drag and Drop. I'm going to click on the Dropdown ribbon here down here at the bottom, and I talk about two things. Dropdown fires when you actually do drop on the prescribed target. Missed will fire if you drop on pretty much anything else. What I want to have happen is in either case, I want my American flag to return back to its current position. There's a built-in to do this. I mean, there's a couple of different ways. I'm going to show you the easiest way here in this demonstration, which is to just simply wire from when I have correctly dropped on or when I've missed to the ins, and under do, the very first ribbon at the top of do is called putback. And let me open that one more time. Put back and let go. So I'm wiring on the object itself. I'm wiring from dropped on to ins to put back. And this will return the flag icon to its original position. This only handles the case if I'm successful. So I need to wire it one more time for missed, which is I've missed the arena altogether. Go ahead and put it back. And right here we should be able to visually see what happens. When I drop on the target, I can follow this wire all the way across. We turn the arena to page 2, and we also put the flag back. When I've missed, nothing happens to the arena, but the flag puts itself back. So let's go ahead and run it one more time. Hit the Run Restart button. I've got a flag I can drag, I can miss, kind of instantly disappears, and if I drop it right on the arena, it goes over to page 2. So I should be able to do this as many times as I like, and the moment that I let go back on top of the other flag, you should always have another one to drag. I'll go back to Edit Reset. Let's take a second here, make sure that you've got this wiring set up identically. And I'm going to pull up our example one more time to show the next step. here I've got the final application running. When I click and drag, while my mouse is down, I've actually got a somewhat transparent version of the American flag. And when I let go, again, I can change the page type. So I'm going to go back to the editor and again open up the outs and open up drag and drop. And now we're going to take a look at the start and drag release ribbons. The out here of start drag fires the moment that the user clicks down with their mouse and moves the object. Drag release fires the moment that an object that has been moved while the user is dragging it, the moment that they mouse up on it, this ribbon fires. So start the moment I click down and move, release the moment I release. What I'm going to have happen here is when I start moving my flag, I'm going to change the transparency. So I'm going to wire from start drag, click and create a little wire. We're going to go up to properties, to visibility, and to opacity, and let go. So you should have from drag start wired to opacity. So when I start moving it, I'm going to set its opacity down to say something like 70. And I'm going to open up the outs one more time, open up drag and drop one more time, and on drag release, I'm going to create another wire and bring this wire up over properties and visibility and to opacity and let go. So now I should have an in ribbon here at the very top that says opacity 70 and opacity 100%. When I start moving, we're going to set the opacity to 70, and when I am done moving the object, we're going to set it back to 100%. And in this, for these sets of objects, it's not that big a deal that the opacity sets itself back to 100%. But as you start trying this with other objects and other content, you'll most likely want to set the opacity back of whatever it is the object's on top, especially if there's a lot of different variants in the objects. Handy little trick. Okay, let's see this working. Let's go ahead and hit the run restart and click and drag, and now I've got a transparent one. I can drop it and get the much larger one, and again and again and again I can do that over and over. And so I'm clicking, I'm dragging, we're immediately setting the opacity to 70. When I let go, it's returning back to 100%, and it's happening without any transition time, so it just appears as it snaps back and the image stays the same. I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit Reset, and if you have any questions, again, please use our questions pane. We'll be happy to answer anything. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at how we create the glow around the flag so that the moment that the two flags are touching the icon and the current spot, I get that little bit of a glow to let my user know it's okay to drop the icon here. Let's again go ahead and open up the outs for this American flag here that's on the top by clicking the outs arrow. And underneath drag and drop, we'll find another set of actions here called collision, and the very first one here at the top, collide with. And the difference between drag and drop is drop happens the moment that you release an object on top of another object, where collision is when the user is moving an object or the program is moving an object, and then the two objects are currently touching. So you don't have to let go, and the object doesn't have to stop there. I'm again going to select the arena as our target. You can open up the collision here to see just a little bit more. We've got colliding with and collision false. Let's go ahead and select our collision target, again by clicking in this little cell over here. It says please select an object, and I'm going to again choose the arena. I'm going to use collide with to set a glow around the outside of the arena, and I'm going to use collision false to remove that glow. So we can just simply wire from collide with, click down and hold the mouse to create a out wire. I'm going to take this wire and mouse over properties on the arena, go down to effects, and we're going to go down to glow length and let go. So now we have collide with wired to an in that should be glow length, and you created this in by dropping this wire on top of the properties of glow length. I'm going to go ahead and delete this wire. Do that one more time. The wire from collide with to the arena under properties and to glow length and let go. This is currently saying that we want to, when we are colliding, to set the glow length to 20. But what I want to have happen is when they do touch, when they are colliding, I want to set that, bump that up quite a bit. Let's go ahead and try 20. So I say when I'm colliding, go ahead and get a glow length of 20. And when I have stopped colliding with the object, we want to set that back to a glow length of 0. So I'm going to click and drag right from collision false, right underneath the collision target of dropped on the arena. We're going to wire that to properties, and once again, under properties, down to glow length, and let go under. So we should have two. Collide with is setting it to 20, and collision false is setting it back to 0.
Those outputs under collision and drag and drop are nested groups, and so if you click on that collided with, see it has a little white arrow to the left. It can open and close, and you have to be sure to have that open in order to see that to see the collision fault.
Good pickup. All right, let's go ahead and run it and see how we're doing. Click the Run Restart button at the top. Click and drag. I've got a ghosted image. Before I let go, the moment that these two touch, you get the corners, get all of it. You should see a glow now of 20 on the arena, and the moment that they're separated, it sets back to 0.
And of course, we can change the color of that glow and other parameters of it too, if we did like yellow.
Sure.
Yep.
And to find all of those settings for the glow length, again, open up Properties under Effects. The glow length, that's how big your glow is, and the color, the glow color, that would change it from. We could change it to orange if we'd like, maybe a bright blue. You can change whether it's an inner glow or an outer glow.
How strong it is.
And when you go ahead and run it now, we should have a bright blue glow. And let go. Well, we're making really good progress. We've got a half hour left. Let's take again look at our project and see what's left to do. So we've got the ghost, we've got the drop, we've got the glow around the object. On our sample here, we've got 3 different flags. We'll handle that in a second. But what we also have is we've got a space here which is going to house some additional text and a bit of a button here. And when we click the button, it opens up another web page. So let's focus on adding some text to go with the corresponding flag and the button. Maybe what we ought to do is frame up our application a little bit better here so we know how much space we have to work with. I'm going to create a flagpole here just by using a rectangle. Kind of do that right about here. Move that over just a little bit. Again, we should be able to click and drag and move our arena like that. And then we're going to need another arena, and this will hold all of our text. And we'll place that kind of right about here. Okay, so we have 3 flags, and the flags are on page 2, and on page 3, and on page 4. And I've got this other arena down here at the very bottom, and currently it's saying page 1 of 1. I'm going to create, on our very first page, I'm going to create a blank page, and we're going to make sure that the user never sees the blank page. And then on page 2, we're going to have page 2 of this bottom arena, we're going to have text that corresponds with our current flag. And on page 3 of this bottom arena, we're going to have text that corresponds to the Betsy Ross version. And on page 4, we're going to have text that matches up to the Francis Hopkinson version of the flag. So with this new arena that I created down here in the bottom right, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 more pages. So I have 4 total pages. And let's go ahead and start with page 4 of 4 on the flag here, and page 4 of 4 of our arena. And on this page, let's just kind of put in some placeholder text for what will be the description of what this flag is and where it came from. So I'm going to use a text object here. Click and create one from our tool palette, and then right over the top of this arena, which is now on page 4 of 4, I click and drag, and we'll write Francis Hopkinson flag. Kind of place that right about here. And I like that, the position and style and everything about it. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to the Edit menu and copy it. I'm going to go back to page 3. Edit, paste. Those steps together, and I'll repeat it, those steps together, not only do they copy the object, but they remember its place inside the arena, and that's really handy if you have forgotten to do some alt copies of text, or want to go back and add some style to all of your pages on the arena. What you do in one page can easily be copied and pasted backwards later. So let's go ahead, and on page 3 will correspond to page 3 of this upper arena, which is the Betsy Ross flag. And so I'm just going to go ahead and change this. And then I'm going to go to page 2, paste it, just write the American flag. Two, 3, 4. I got these matched up. And to save myself some effort, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire the current page of this top arena to the current page of this bottom arena, so they'll always be in sync. So I don't have to say when I drop this American flag on top of the drop spot, set this page and set this page. We'll just wire those two together. Really easy. So I'm going to select the bottom right arena, open up Properties and Values, and I'm going to wire between page current, click and drag, up to the other arena, make sure that I get its message center, there we go, drop spot, values, page current.
Now, how did you make sure you got the arena and not the flag when you wired up there?
Well, to be honest, I just wiggled my wire a little bit to make sure that I got the right message center. And it's kind of a bit of a trick, but you can now, since these objects are position locked, the flags inside each one of the pages, when I select here, I'm automatically going to get the message center for that arena. So it might have been easiest to just select the top arena, get its message center, and take page current
And wire out from it.
and wire out from it.
Sure.
You can go in either direction.
But there are lots of cases where you don't have it all locked up like that, and you have contents in there.
Right.
And what you said is really important. Sometimes you just have to wiggle the cursor around a little bit to get the message center that you want.
Right.
And for an arena where the arena is tightly fitted around graphics, what I find is that I just have to approach the arena slowly from the outside edge, because it will select first, you know, as I'm coming from the outside. If I approach too fast, I may skip right over the arena and go to the internal object, you know. So if you just come up on the edge, that message center is going to pop up first, and then I can go right to it. But you have to wiggle around sometimes to kind of tickle it and wake it up.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. I want to test how this works, but again, we need to circle back to the concept of arenas accepting and releasing objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the new arena that we created, and I'm going to go over to the inspector, and I'm going to turn both accept and release objects to false. And I'm also going to select this arena and send it to the back, so that as I drag the icon over, that the icon here is always on top. So again, we're selecting the arena, we're turning accept and reject objects to false. This way my icon doesn't fall into, mistakenly at runtime, fall into the arena. And we're also making sure that the arena is on the very back layer. So we'll select it and we'll send it to back. And the command key to send it back is to select an object and hold down Shift and B. Send it to back. Okay, let's get our arenas synced up here on page 1, place flag here, and run it. Now when I mouse over, I am on top, and only the one here on top is getting the glow. And when I let go, we're seeing the larger American flag, and we're also seeing page 2 of the arena below, which says the American flag. Pretty cool. Okay, let's do the next 2 steps. I want to add some transitions to the one on top so that I've got a crossfade between flags. And I also want to make sure that this larger text area isn't showing until the user has first dropped at least one of the flags. We only have one, but we're going to have 2 more here. As soon as they've dropped one of these on the appropriate spot, then this bottom arena does become visible. So let's do that step first, and then we'll talk arena transitions. I'm going to select the bottom arena, and from the inspector, I'm going to choose Hide on Run True, which says when my application starts running, this arena will be invisible. So we can go ahead and try that. We can run it. Of course, you no longer see that spot. Hit Edit Reset. And I want it to become visible the moment that I have dropped an object on our drop spot. So I'm going to again select the American flag. And I'm going to wire from Dropdown, click and drag to create a wire, over here to the bottom arena, to In, Display, and Show. I'm going to change my wiring level, and this is a good tip for everyone to know. In the upper right-hand corner of the editor, right next to the Show All button, this little drop-down changes how many message centers or what level of message centers and wires you get to see. The top one shows all wires and all message centers. The second choice, show related wires. This is if you have an object selected, it will, from its message center, show all the wires that originate from it. So here in this case, I've got the drop spot and the arena below it showing. If I change to show selected wires, you notice that I only see the message center now for the American flag. If I click off and click back on, again, I only see the message center and the wires that are wired to the object itself. If I hold down the Shift key and also select the lower right-hand arena, you'll see that now I see drop-down and show. So if you've got a couple of message centers on top of each other and just want to get to the relationship between two objects, changing your wiring level and then just selecting the two objects you want to work with will kind of clean up your space. And of course you can return back to any wiring level that you like by again going back to the upper right, and we could change this back to show related wires. It's kind of worth playing around with it. It'll save you a lot of time as you're authoring larger projects. Okay, let's run it. We've got, when I dropped the American flag on the spot, we're going to show this arena down here at the bottom. Run it. Again, the arena in the lower right has disappeared with hide on run. When I click and drag, I get a ghost. When I collide with the drop spot, I get a glow. And when I let go, I get the current American flag. And the arena now in the lower right hand shows, and it is also changed to page 2. Hit edit reset, and now let's set up our arena transition. So we're going to both fade in and out the lower arena, and we're going to crossfade our content. So as more flags and more pages are shown, we're going to make kind of a nice looking transition in between. Let's start with the arena that we're just bringing onto the stage with show. Go ahead and select the arena in the lower right. And on the wire that you just created, the drop-down wire from the American flag that now is showing the arena, go ahead and open this up by clicking Show. And this is going to open up and show you some transition options for the visibility changes of the arena. So when I drop on the target here at the top, I want to take, I don't know, a half a second, so 0.5, and I want to fade in the arena. So this says show the arena, but take a half a second to fade it in. Go ahead and run that, and you get a nice little fade in. To crossfade content, as the pages change, you'll find that selection under Properties and under Actions on the Arena's Message Center. Kind of bring this up to the top here so that we can see it a little bit more. What I'm after is under Actions, Transition Type and Transition Seconds, and this relates to changing pages inside the arena. Let's go ahead and change the transition seconds to 0.5, and we'll also turn our transition type to crossfade. So two different types of transitions. The first one that we did on show fades it in when the action happens, when it's called to show itself. We fade it in. The second one under Actions, Transition Type, and Transition Seconds refers to as the arena changes pages. So when we go from page 1 to page 2, we're going to have a crossfade, and it's going to take a half a second. I'm going to do the same thing for the arena right above it. Go ahead and select this arena. Change my wiring level so I don't clip any wires that weren't meant to be clipped. I'm going to choose the drop spot arena under actions. We're going to change the transition type to crossfade and to take 0.5 seconds. So these two different arenas, they change pages together. They're locked step, page 1 of 1, page 1 of 4. Let's go ahead and see how this works. And I let go, and I get a nice little fade in on both. So as we go ahead and create a few more flags, we've got essentially all of our transitions set up. So now it's just a matter of duplicating a few objects and changing what they look like by doing object replacement. So I'll take just a short little break here. Go ahead and put your hands up when you've got all the steps completed. And if you have any questions, please be sure to ask them through the question pane. And then we'll move on to just our last few steps before we wrap up today. Okay, let's go ahead and duplicate our two flags here, the one that you can drag and the one that you don't, and get the next two flags changing the page. Again, if you remember, the flag below the one that you move is position locked, so I need to unlock it here for a second so that I can select both objects. I'm going to first select the flag on top. I'm going to go to the Edit menu, and I'm going to nudge it right by 10. So now I get to see the one below it. I'm going to double-click on the one now here that's over on the left and remove its position lock. I might even go ahead and go back to select the one that's on top, go to the Edit menu, and nudge it back 10 left. So now that I can marquee select both flags. Okay, there's two ways that I can do this. To copy both objects and move them around, I can hold down the Alt key, click and drag, or I can go to the Edit menu and say Copy and Paste. And now I'm going to be moving both objects. And I know that they're both there because I can go back to the Edit menu, selecting just the one that's now on top. Go Edit. I'll nudge it by 10 to the right. You can see that the one is below it. For this step, I'm going to go ahead and select the one on top and nudge it a few more times over to the right. And we'll go ahead and we're going to replace the second set with two of the Betsy Ross flags. And again, to do object replacement, you click and hold down to grab an object from your resource library. And then I'm going to go ahead and mouse over the one I want to change. You see I got the construction tape. When the construction tape is up, I'm going to let go, and I'm just going to replace this one. And I'm going to do it again for the one that's on the bottom. Place this. So I should have two flags right on top of each other. I'm going to go to Edit, and we'll nudge it back left a couple of times. I'll select both of them. This time I'm going to do an Alt drag. I've got both objects selected, and hold down the Alt key on my keyboard, click and drag. It's going to bring both with. Place it kind of right about here. And this time I'm going to use the shortcuts. You can find the shortcuts down at the bottom here, it's Shift plus the arrow key to move it by 10. Just like the one on top, Shift, arrow, arrow, and we'll replace the bottom two flags with the Hopkinson version. So I'm going to click, drag it over, replace the one on top. Let's say replace this. Go ahead and do it for the one on the bottom. Place this. Click the one on top, and we'll nudge it back over. So the cool thing about the steps that we just did is not only did we copy the objects over, but we also copied all of the wiring that we created at the very beginning of today's webinar. So we really don't have to do much wiring at all in order to finish up. But the one thing that we do need to do, and I'm going to turn my wiring level back up here to show related wires, and you should see the problem pretty quickly, which is the other two flags set the first arena, the drop spot, to page 2. Well, the Hopkinson flag, back over here on our arena on the top, just show the selected wires, is on page 4, and the Betsy Ross flag is on page 3. So what we need to change is the dropped on ribbon, its action, which changes the page of this top arena. Go back here to show related wires, and you should see that they're all pretty much the same. They're all going from dropped on to change to page 2. So this step isn't too difficult, but take a little bit of care when you're creating it. It's the first time today that we'll be rewiring something. Okay, so from dropped on to drop spot, we can see that this Hopkinson flag is changing the page to be page 2. I want it to be page 4. In fact, let me select this top arena, and we'll even go to page 4. So we've got the Hopkinson flag, this little icon here. We want to make sure that it's matching up here. So from dropped on, it's wired up here to set page current to 2. I'm going to get rid of this wire, and you can get rid of this wire in a couple ways. One, you could just clip it by mousing over it, making sure that it gets highlighted. You'll know that it's highlighted because it's gotten quite a bit thicker. Just clicking down with your mouse and letting go completely deletes the wire. If you'd like to keep it but rewire it to something else, go to the end that you want to remove it from, so closer over here to the arena's message center. Get it highlighted, kind of like so. Click and hold down, and now you know you've got this wire that you can move around. If you let go at any time, you can always go back to the Hopkinson flag's message center and again wire from dropped on. But now that I've got this wire, I'm going to go back over to the message center for my drop spot and go down to values and to page current and let go. This should have created a new inlet that's now wired from the Hopkinson flag, from dropping on the target to setting the page to page 4. If your second page current ribbon says 2 or 1 or something else, you can go ahead and here and click and change it to 4. We need to do that one more time. This time I'm going to select, and again I'm going to select the arena in the upper right hand corner, change it to page 3, just so that I know that this is what I want to match up. And we'll go back to the icon of the Betsy Ross flag. Go ahead and click. You can see that when it drops on the drop spot, it too is still setting it to page 2. I want to get rid of this wire. Mousing over the wire, getting it to highlight, clicking down, and then I'm going to go again to Properties, to Values, and Page Current. Let go. This creates yet another set page inlet at the top. It's going to page 3. So I should have the first American flag setting it to page 2, the Betsy Ross version setting it to page 3, and the Francis Hopkinson version setting it to page 4. Let's go ahead and select the arena up in the upper right-hand corner. Let's return it to page 1 so that our instructions are showing. And let's see how we've done. You might just at this point, since we didn't lock the objects below, make sure that you set your play style here to the run locked position here in the upper left-hand corner. This prevents us as authors from moving anything around the screen that isn't set to movable true. You know it's highlighted because it's all white. And I'll hit the run reset button. Again, my arena should have disappeared from the bottom. And then let's start with another flag. Let's start with the one on the bottom. Let's click and drag. I too get a ghost. I get the glow when I move over. And when I let go, I now see the Francis Hopkinson version of the flag. The arena down at the bottom shows, and it's also showing me that text. And now I should be able to do this over and over for all 3 of the flags. Okay, let's do the last part of today's exercise, which is creating a couple buttons that open a new web page. I think that's pretty valuable. And then I'm going to set you off today with the challenge. So as you're starting to build more interactions with whatever your content happens to be, that you can make a few additional refinements to this application.
Do we get to put the pretty background in there sometimes? So
Sure, we can do that now.
make it look pretty?
Sure. Let's go ahead and we can move in our background. Let's grab my photo here of the Statue of Liberty and just go ahead and grab this ping and then, I don't know, drop it anywhere you'd like on the screen. And you can kind of position it down in place, kind of get it close, like so. And of course, it's covering all of our content, so let's go to the Arrange menu and send it to back. And,
that looks better.
and so now that it's positioned in place and I no longer need to move it, I'm going to also position lock the Statue of Liberty image. I'm going to click on the image, make sure that its message center is selected, and down in its message center in the upper right-hand corner, choose the position lock. And then this way, when I do a marquee select or move my cursor around, I'm not going to be repositioning the image. So let's take a look at how it looks now with all of them on there. Place flag here. Oh, I can see one thing that I need to change. Cool. Let's send this the flagpole backwards by going to the Arrange menu and sending it backwards a couple times. There we go. All right, let's try creating a web link by having a button that you can press and sending the user off to a new web page. I'm going to go ahead and select this arena down in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to mouse over to page 2. We labeled just the American flag. And I'm going to start by putting in a push button. So I'm going to go back to our toolbox, and then right underneath the rectangle next to the radio button and above text input, you'll find the push button. And select that object. And then on page 2, we'll click and drag to create a push button. Now this isn't actually in the arena, is it? Because we have accept and release objects turned to false. So in order to make sure that I get this button in here, we need to click the arena and change object accept just for a moment. We'll set it to true. And now we should be able to see that this object is indeed held by the arena and the arena is not letting go. So I'm going to put my button kind of right about here, and we'll label it Learn More. So when my user pushes this button, we want to send them to a new web page. And we do that by using what we call the web link object, also inside the toolbox. I'm going to use my hand tool to just kind of reposition so I have a little more space to work with. Again, you can find the hand tool, the reposition tool, in the upper right-hand corner of the toolbox. And don't forget to go ahead and select the pointer again so that you can edit once you're done moving things around. I'm going to put my web link object over here on the gray space, kind of right about here. And let's just kind of take a look at how this works. It takes and for today's exercise, we're really only interested in a couple of things. A URL, which is the destination of the new page that we're going to open. We want to make sure that it's set to jump, which it really does mean open a new web page and go to it. Send query would never open a page, so make sure that jump is selected and that new window is set to true. So what we're going to do is when we press this button, we want it to open up a web page. To do that, we'd wire button pressed, clicking and dragging, to the very bottom of the web link object where there's this little arrow, and letting go. So on button pressed, we're going to fire the web link object. And of course, we need to give it a URL to go to. And I do believe that I sent that to you as part of the zip file. You'll find a little text file here with some resource links. We've got the Francis Hopkinson link on Wikipedia, the American flag, and the Betsy Ross link. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this HTML text right in. Go copy, go back in here, and paste. So that's our destination. We're jumping to a new page. We're opening a new window, and it's all happening when we press the Learn More button. So I'm going to use my hand tool to kind of move this over to the side again, and let's test it out.
You know, a really handy thing to know is if you just press the 1 key, it centers your workspace and puts it to normal size. Sometimes when you want to look in a little closer, if you press the 2 key, it zooms in and you have a little closer view of your work.
You can try that by just moving the hand tool off to the side, clicking with nothing selected here, clicking 1,
and bam, you're right back.
Right in the middle, pressing 2, zooms right in, pressing 1, back to 100%. Okay, I'm going to make sure that my arenas are set to place flag here. We'll run it, and I'm going to use the American flag, drop it. I'm going to get my new arena with the button that's wired to the web link object, and when I go ahead and press that, boom, I get a new page.
Ta-da! That's nice.
All right, let's. We're done wiring for today. We'll certainly stay on and answer any more questions that you have here beyond 2:30. But I do want to leave you with a challenge. So let me open up the sample version that we looked at the beginning of today. Let me create a new window and play it from the very beginning here. Okay, so the challenge is I've got a set of rollovers here that correspond to each one of the flags. I've got a little bit of a transition. It's not the tricky part. But the tricky part is when I click and drag and get the icon, my rollover goes away. And when I drop and place the flag in the appropriate spot, I get my text here at the bottom, and when I go back again, I get the rollover. We've actually used all of the ribbons today that you need in order to create this type of rollover, where you've got a drag action that cancels the visibility of this particular object. And I'll give you one hint. The way that you set this up is both by using the property of the ins of show and hide, as well as using Opacity. And together, in combination with a certain set of out ribbons, you'll be able to get this exact effect, where when you roll over an object, you get a tooltip or rollover, but the moment that you start manipulating the object, that rollover disappears. Well, thanks everybody for attending today's webinar. This was a fun application and design type that I hope you get a chance to use a lot in your own work. And I'll stick on for a little bit here and answer any questions that you have. Please feel free to type them through the questions pane. Thanks again.